Twitter'da yani yeni yaranıb Azərbaycanda. Bəlkə də
niyə öyle Azərbaycan?
Azərbaycanda bəlkə də 500 nəfər Azərbaycanlı, maksimum 5 nəfər Azərbaycanlı Twitter'da istifadə edir.
500 Azərbaycan using this.
Ben de var. Çok değil. Çoktan oldu. 4 yıl var.
Sizin? Yok, Ayfın yani ünlü olan Azərbaycanda Twitter istifadə edən
General, it's not very popular.
Not yet.
Hello, Nargis.
Americans may be a little bit better about the situation here. You've probably already seen that this is, on a political level, government level, this is a society that is quite different than the United States. And what we like about the cooperation we have with Europe, with the director of this school and the university system, is that this is one place among very few places in all of Azerbaijan where people of all ages and of all backgrounds can come, they can do research, they can get on the internet, which is not necessarily very common in households like it is in America. And they can talk a lot more freely here than they might be able to talk in other places. Having said that, I know a lot of people, usually the older folks around, but a lot of people have some reservations about saying things, saying what is really on their mind. Now, working with social media, you know quite well that a lot of people speak their mind very freely on the internet. I think that's a good thing. It's an American value. It's not just an American value. It's a value of all people interested in human rights and freedom of speech. So having said that, please feel free. Just because I'm from the embassy and I wear a tie, which I don't like to wear, that does not mean that I'm here to, enforce the American government position on anything. In fact, even the embassy, part of our mission here is to help the free thought process. So the first thing I'd like to do is just actually get a feel for what you have noticed, one, with your interaction with the Americans, and for the Americans, what you've noticed about differences here and differences that you see here, significant differences, both on the cultural side and then particularly on like the internet and things like this. The arrest and the trial was politically motivated because of their opposition and their satire videos. So that's the kind of environment we work in. There are other journalists as well who are in the same situation.
How did they justify sending them to jail in 2.5 years? Was it like on the basis of the fight?
Yeah, the law that they have here that we often see, unfortunately, for all of these journalists, the law that they apply is what they call hooliganism. So being a thug, or what we might call in America disorderly conduct, something like that. It's a really broad, somewhat undefinable offense, and like I said, we often see that as the charge for those who we believe are arrested for political motivations. I will tell you that in my interaction with some of the Azerbaijani, particularly the youth who do utilize the web, blogs and the internet and chat rooms, those people that use those tools to have free discussions, it scared them. And so we've seen actually a decrease in the kinds of opposition type activities. And yes, you're right, it's encouraging to hear somebody able to speak freely to you, who I'm guessing you had not met prior to yesterday. That's encouraging to me. There's a lot of encouraging things like that that happen in this country. It just takes that person-to-person interaction to actually see that. From my standpoint, half of my job I spend sitting behind a computer answering emails and writing nominations for people to go study in the U.S., things like this. So I don't get to see all of that on a daily basis. But yeah, so that's the kind of environment we work in. And one of the other things that I should mention is, out of my office in the public diplomacy section in the embassy, we handle the cultural affairs, like I said, the educational programs. Those are both what I do. I also cover the other things in the absence of my boss, but my boss is primarily responsible for media interaction, which is not just bringing the media to embassy events to celebrate our successes and to show off our programs, but also in the sense that we are very interested in seeing a much freer press. The newspapers here, unlike America, are not widely read. Some of the most popular newspapers, you're talking in a country of now 9 million people, the top 3 or 4 newspapers together print maybe 4,000 to 5,000 newspapers per day. That's it. And if you go to a kiosk where they're sold, at the end of the day, you will often see a stack of them still sitting there. It's, for whatever reason, maybe you can help me. Not a lot of people sit outside in the park and read a newspaper. Yeah? Lots of people watch television. It's a lack of information and exactly. And that's one of the things that we see is the newspapers. You may have newspapers that claim to be opposition newspapers, but they're working in an environment that is very tough. If these bloggers are fearing to talk about things in public or on their blogs, then you can imagine a newspaper who's actually printing something essentially permanent and accessible to all. They're also equally as afraid. So you often see some articles in those opposition newspapers try to push the boundaries, like maybe we're criticizing a little bit, but they step away from the really harsh criticism that we might see in American newspapers. If that's a free choice of the newspaper, then so be it. That's obviously something that we as the American government, if that's what they choose to do, fine. But we're pretty confident that it's motivated because of the type of environment that they're working in. So newspapers